disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, May the 12th, 2026. Your readers today are Lori and
Lita.
Let's look at the weather. I was excited because I was looking at the 7-day forecast and I didn't see a lot of the rain emojis, and I thought, it's not going to be there. And then I started reading. So there's times of sun and clouds today with a high of 58, cloudy tonight with on and off rain and drizzle late with a low of 48. Breezy tomorrow with occasional rain and drizzle. Rain can lead to a slower travel and reduced visibility. High of 60. Thursday, a shower in spots. But then you go to Friday, times of clouds and sun. Saturday, partly sunny, breezy. Sunday, cloudy most of the time. And Monday, though, next week, mostly sunny.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be warmer, 107 in Thermal, California.
Thermal?
Yeah, that's what it says, thermal. It's well named.
Yes.
And then there's International Falls, Minnesota, 19.
Ugh.
The air quality index is around 48. It's in the good range. And Monday's main offender was ozone, so probably the same today. And I thought it was funny. The pollen report will return when the source starts reporting it again. Well, good to know. Okay. Sunset tonight, 8:28 p.m. And it's time to look at the lakes. Lake Erie, wind south-southeast, 4 to 8 knots, becoming west to northwest today. Seas are less than a foot. Visibility is generally clear. The water temperature, want to go swimming, 46 degrees.
Oh, that's not bad. I just got an allergy report here because I just heard on the radio that birch and oak are very high at this time.
Oh, okay.
So stay away from the birch and oak trees.
Get your tissues out.
There you go. On the front page, starting with ambitious academics and parent outreach, top Buffalo Schools strategic plan. Buffalo School Superintendent Pascal Mubenga left no room for misunderstanding. The 32-page strategic plan he presented to the Buffalo School Board on Wednesday was the community's work, not just his own. This is not a Dr. Mubenga plan, he said. This is BPS plan. The document, which lays out core beliefs, the superintendent's vision, a mission statement, and 4 chief priorities, was the collective work of a 59-person group that met several times since last February. The school board will vote on the plan during its May 20th meeting, the same one in which it will vote on the annual budget. The school board's leadership team, comprising President Kathy Evans Brown and Vice President Janita Everhart and Andrea Zulik, was a key part of the strategic plan committee, but the group also included higher education, faith-based and nonprofit leaders, as well as parents, teachers, principals, and district community partners. A series of town halls in the fall gave the community an opportunity to share what they value. The strategic plan committee landed upon 2 core beliefs. Every student can achieve at high levels, and partnership, equity, and voice drive student success. Mubenga's vision, too, was lofty, that Buffalo can be a leader in the New York's Big 5 city school districts and that it can graduate students ready to tackle college or contribute professionally. That means all the AP classes that we are offering, all the CTE classes that we are offering. We really want to make sure that our students are leaving us with credentials to be ready to be productive citizens, the superintendent said. That's the vision. Here are 4 things to know. If Buffalo's plan comes to fruition, student academic achievement in 2031 will almost be unrecognizable compared with the district's current state. The percentage of students whose performances rank as proficient on state assessments for grades 3 through 8 in English and math will increase by 20 points in the next 5 years, according to the plan. From assessments taken last spring, Buffalo's proficiency rates were 27.5% for English and only 25% for math.
That's just awful.
It is. The same degree of improvement is expected of Buffalo's 5th and 8th graders on science assessments. Academic excellence will be monitored in other ways. Buffalo's goal for its graduation rate is 75%, about 9 points higher than it is presently, and the district aims for 5% growth in the number of students taking advanced placement or dual credit courses. Student attendance is enough of a crisis area in the district that one of Mubanga's first moves as superintendent was to implement a monthly attendance lottery, where students who miss one or fewer days of school in a month were eligible for cash prizes up to $500. The district has so far followed through on that initiative, even highlighting the winners on its main Facebook page. The district's Everyday Matters initiative, however, involves a deeper understanding of attendance data, not just if students are absent, but why. It can range anywhere from transportation barriers, family responsibilities, and housing instability. Also, connecting families to resources and services is absolutely critical, said Sharon Brown, Chief of Student Support Services. We often find that attendance is tied to non-academic needs. So we know it's important to ensure we deepen our work around mental health, counseling, transportation support, and medical or dental services. The objective is more than physical presence. The district aims to improve how welcome, safe, and included students feel in their respective buildings. Data for that goal would come from a student survey in the district's comprehensive improvement plan submitted each year to the state. We're going to make sure that students feel connected by making sure they're connected to an adult in their building, said Ebony Prophet Bullock, Buffalo Schools Chief Accountability Officer. While student, family, and community collaboration was the title of the district's third priority, much of the dialogue with the school board kept coming back to a specific topic: how the district can better connect with and reach more parents. The focus was less on growing Buffalo Schools' 6 recognized parent groups, the leaders of which are regularly involved in district activities. Ramona Reynolds, Chief of Athletics, Community and Family Engagement and Community Schools, said part of the mission is engaging parents whose interests are less about district governance and more about supporting individual schools. There are some who are only interested in Saturday academies and spaghetti dinners and things like that, Reynolds said. I don't want us to discount those families because involvement in any way is really, I'm talking statistically, helpful to support our students. School board members floated ideas and cited some work already happening in the district. Members at large, Zolik, commended Stanley Makowski School 99 for how it schedules parent-teacher organization meetings and school-based management team meetings on the same day, allowing parents to fulfill 2 key roles in one trip. And the fourth priority has been in the spotlight because it touches on persistent issues: troubles with student transportation, annual dives into district cash reserves, and the need to close several schools due to enrollment decline. Chief Financial Officer Jim Barnes in Mubanga recently met with Joseph Gozin, the district's Chief of Transportation, to assess busing problems. The district's long-term goal is to reduce the number of yellow buses arriving late by 30 minutes or more by 20 percentage points based off data collected next school year. There are inherent hurdles in transportation, however, including contracts with charter schools that run on different schedules, and the mandate to provide busing for 355 homeless or foster children, which takes 18 buses well outside the city boundaries, Barnes said. It's a very complex octopus to get our arms around, said Barnes, acting chief operating officer with Mubanga, since Lou Petrucci took a job with the city of Buffalo earlier this spring. Closing at least 4 schools will make a major difference in this priority. Despite the hurdles ahead, Mubanga and his leadership team said they were proud of the committee's work to assemble the plan. I know if you don't have a plan, the superintendent said, you're going to be at a point where everybody is telling you what needs to be done.
And a duel over the term saberhood comes to an end. The Buffalo Sabres are putting the kibosh on the Buffalo Saberhood fan group hosting road game watch parties, at least under that name. The Sabres asked the group to stop using saberhood, a phrase the team trademarked several years ago. Logos, marks, and intellectual property that were being used by the fan group are also trademarked and exclusive property of the Sabres. The fan group had been using the Buffalo Saberhood name to gather for road game bar takeovers at an array of establishments in the city and around Western New York that have drawn a few hundred fans at each site and have been a boon for those businesses. But the team also has its own network of bars that it works with and promotes under the Saberhood name, putting it in conflict with the fan group. The Sabres pregame and watch parties for home playoff games are also referred to as the Saberhood Block Party. So the team asked the fan group to stop using the Saberhood name. But the fan group plans to keep going with a new name. Brandon Carr, a co-founder of the fan group, said the group is changing its name to the Buffalo Saber Blades. The fan group hosted a road game bar takeover at Thirsty Buffalo, which is on Elmwood Avenue, on Sunday for Game 3 of the second round of the playoffs between the Sabres and Montreal. From the Sabres' perspective, the team is protecting ownership of its property while trying to avoid confusion over the team's affiliation with paying partners and what this fan group is hosting. The team had what it described as a pleasant conversation with the group, and there was no formal cease and desist order issued. We love that our fans have embraced the Saberhood, but we want to ensure our audience can easily distinguish the difference between official team and fan-run events, the Sabres said in a statement. For his part, Carr said he was disappointed that the group couldn't partner with the team to use the phrase and coexist to benefit the overall fan base. It has been hosting watch parties for road games since March as the team caught fire and eventually ended a 14-season playoff drought. The phrase Saberhood is a marketing and community campaign that has been trademarked by the team in 2022, but it became popular this season as a way to recognize the success of the Sabres. Carr and co-founder Ron Seltz ran with it as the group's name because they thought it was truly representative of the fans' base. It's just unfortunate that we weren't able to affiliate with them, Carr said in a text message Monday. They had that trademark for years and nobody had even heard of it until we took the initiative and really did the legwork to make the unified fan base that it has become. But at the end of the day, the name isn't what's important. It's people coming together. Carr and Seltz have been hoping this movement could lead to the start of another Bills Mafia for Sabres fans. The Bills licensed the phrase Bill Mafia in 2025 for merchandise and clothing, embracing the fan-created brand. But the team did so in collaboration with founding members of Bill Mafia to incorporate the phrase into official branding. You want to strike when the iron is hot. Carr, a former restaurateur who now owns a tech company, previously told the news. Breaking this drought, you can just feel it in the air in Buffalo. It's just a different attitude, a positive attitude. There's renewed excitement and a nostalgia from the era of 15 to 20 years ago. If we can get it going right now and put the label to it to grow the fan base, now is the time to do it. This is not a business and the fan group isn't paid in any way. That is different from other Buffalo tailgate companies and bar takeovers that cater to the Bills Mafia. Carr and Seltz used the fan group as an opportunity to support local businesses by creating what they describe as a mobile tailgate in different locations for away game parties. It launched on March 22nd with its first bar takeover at Transit Music Lounge in Depew, with game time specials on beer and wings and chances to win gift certificates as well as door prizes. The Sabres have also made an effort to support local businesses as their popularity has soared, and fans have been more apt to go out and to gather to watch the games. But what the fan group has been doing conflicts a bit with the Team Saberhood bar network of 10 bars that the Sabres have partnered with, promoting them essentially as watch party sites. During Sabres games, the 10 bars offer drink specials sponsored by another partner, Labatt's, and give away prizes including Sabres official merchandise. Carr said his fan group has already started the process to trademark the Buffalo Sabres Blades. It should allow the group to more quickly transition into a nonprofit that would raise money for charity and build out a staff. Carr's plan is to do even more in future seasons, including creating home game tailgates. Looking at things on the broader view, this will end up being a blessing in disguise because now we can fully monetize and get nonprofit status without anything looming over our heads, Carr said. The only regrettable thing is that now, in this sense, it creates a competition, and that's not something that we ever wanted.
And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 14 minutes past the hour. And an arrest and charges are unlikely in the Bills Stadium vandalism. The graffiti vandalism 3 months ago at the new Bills Stadium did not turn out to be as damaging as first thought. Erie County Sheriff John Garcia said he does not have high hopes for an arrest or charges from the incident, which caused the contractor to temporarily cease all construction work at the time. "We're moving on," Garcia told the Buffalo News. "I think it got blown out of proportion." The damage to the 200-level suites was initially estimated by Bill's construction contractors at around $150,000, but a lot of the damage was not permanent. The graffiti was done to luxury suites on the west side of the facility. County officials said crude and pornographic remarks on the granite countertop, tile, and flooring over a February weekend. At the time, the suites were 90% done, but the porous finishes weren't yet sealed, leading to the expectation that the damage was permanent and countertops would need to be fully replaced. The damage was thought to be extensive enough that officials expected Gilbane Turner would need to file a claim with its insurance company. But no granite countertops needed to be replaced after all, Garcia said, and that drastically reduced the damage estimate to a far more lesser figure, he said. They were able to clean them, Garcia said, so all of a sudden went from $150,000 to, hey, don't worry about it. The general contractor, Gilbane Turner, opted to do its own internal investigation instead of having the sheriff's office directly handle the matter. So while the investigation remains open, it's unlikely to move forward with any serious charges beyond criminal mischief, if there are any charges at all. When workers found the graffiti of crude remarks in the 200-level suite, Gilbane Turner and county officials expressed outrage and vowed to hold the perpetrators accountable. Gilbane Turner temporarily ceased construction work, held an all-hands meeting with construction workers, fast-tracked surveillance camera installation, promised a complete investigation, and offered a $100,000 reward for anyone with information leading to an arrest and conviction. Since then, a few workers have been pulled from the job, but no one has been arrested. Todd Starowitz, a spokesman for the Buffalo Bills, issued a statement from the team Monday saying, "We are not at liberty to discuss an active or ongoing investigation. However, we are confident in the Erie County Sheriff's handling of the matter and are pleased that the project remains on schedule." Garcia and Undersheriff William Cooley said the current sheriff's office role is not the active investigation it started as, particularly since construction contractors chose to look into the matter on their own without follow-up involvement by the sheriff's office. While those involved with the case feel they may have a good sense of who is responsible, no one is confessing, and the case needs to be built on supporting witnesses, statements, and evidence, not hearsay, they said. "We're waiting for somebody to come forward, give us information, concrete information, that we could take to the DA's office," Garcia said. Should deputies arrest individuals for the damage at the stadium, he said, they would likely face criminal mischief charges. Criminal mischief charges including damaging someone else's property without their permission. That charge, which can include defacing property with graffiti, ranges from a high-level misdemeanor to felony charges depending on the monetary value of the damage. Damaging property in excess of $1,500 is considered a Class D felony.
And, in my view, Liam O'Mahony of Lockport learned to get comfortable working in open spaces. While contemplating this era of remote and hybrid work arrangements, I recalled several unique office situations I had the privilege of working in over the last 30 years. When I was a part-time staff writer in college, I shared a desk with other students. We checked our mail slot 2 times a week where coaches submitted scores and our director left revised stories. Sometimes we jockeyed for time on the Mac, but I preferred going in at night to finish my writing. My first job was in a media relations office for 3 people next to a gym at the University of New Hampshire. I had a desk at the entrance, no door, window or cubicle, and worked nights and weekends that aligned with men's and women's seasonal sports schedules. It was fun to play hoops at lunchtime, but it was a distracting environment. With my next job at the United Center in Chicago, I earned a cubicle, but I had to share it. It was at the entrance to the marketing front office where anyone could step in and interrupt. The real annoyance was the constant clicking of the key fob allowing staff in. A quirky perk came on game days when I could smell cigar smoke wafting from team owner Jerry Reinsdorf's secretive office that was so nondescript I thought it was a closet. When I relocated to Seattle, I shared an office with 2 people on the 2nd floor of the Sonics training facility. I could see the Space Needle out one window and rain-soaked traffic through the other window. It was a tin can that shook whenever a semi cruised by. In the spring of 2001, it swayed rigorously for a few seconds and I thought a truck hit us. It turned out to be a minor earthquake. Our department was then reassigned after a couple of years to join the rest of the marketing cubicles and corner offices in a 5-story corporate building that had amazing views of Elliott Bay. When I moved to Phoenix to work at a public relations agency, I discovered the newsroom-style open-floor setting of pods in an all-glass high-rise overlooking a human-made lake and the famous A Mountain at Sun Devil Stadium at Arizona State University. I quickly adapted to working with different departments without any walls or doors. The partners shook up the seating every few months, so everybody was mobile. The best part was its short walk to lunch spots on Tempe's famed Mill Avenue. There were little rooms to make pitch calls to media outlets. On Fridays, I ensured my client time was entered because someone wheeled around a beer cart and then it was checkout time. When I took a job with the City of Chandler's Parks and Recreation Department in a new fitness center where I finally had my own office and a television to monitor news, I played basketball and ran the track upstairs after work. When I returned to Buffalo, I had a nice office on the 3rd floor of an old house with windows that oversaw traffic on the 198, but it felt like an attic. There was one restroom for 10 people. Other than that occasional inconvenience, working in a home setting had its comforts and its flexibility. Through all of these locations, I learned to embrace ease configuration and customize my zone to make it the best of the work atmosphere for me. All you need is a desk, a phone, and a laptop, right?
Right. And editorial from the Buffalo News, a costly fight. Memo to City Comptroller Barbara Miller Williams. Please consider the impact of prolonged legal battles. The comptroller has lost in court not once, but twice, most recently in a unanimous decision, and now she is preparing for a potential third challenge. The lawyers in court proceedings come at taxpayer expense, one that a financially struggling city like Buffalo can ill afford. The comptroller said she is appealing to the state's highest court to uphold her decision to not borrow money for projects. This is borrowing that was already approved by city lawmakers, and it concerns important projects, including school projects that are more than 97% reimbursable through the state education department and, as the News' Justin Sondel reported, would be fully reimbursed for the remaining funding through district reserves. The situation has been going on for some time, with Miller Williams refusing to borrow $110 million that was authorized by the Common Council in '24 and $95 million approved last year. She holds that these amounts violate a debt cap set by her office, one that she has described as binding. Chris Scanlon, now the South District Council member, was a mayor when the battle over borrowing began. It continues under the leadership of current Mayor Sean Ryan. Miller Williams eventually borrowed $29 million last year, slightly more than the cap. Clarifying the scope of roles has been a central issue. Miller Williams has stated that as the city's elected comptroller, she has the power to set an annual debt cap for the city. She insists that her decisions takes precedence over the objection of the Common Council and mayor. This would be understandable if both the council and the mayor did not also have authority over the city's capital budget, which is a spending plan separate from the city budget used to fund infrastructure projects and large-scale equipment purchases. The city is at roughly 10% of its borrowing limit under the state constitution and could borrow nearly $1.5 billion more before reaching that limit. Meanwhile, the matter is returning to court. Fillmore District Council member Mitch Nowakowski has been involved in the effort to get capital improvement dollars released for the city. Now he has no words to describe this latest scenario. Scanlon said this situation has entered the theater of the absurd. Where does it end? As reported, the city has so far spent more than $200,000 on outside counsel for the lawsuit because the Corporation Counsel's office cannot represent both parties. Once the comptroller files a motion of appeal, the State Court of Appeals will decide whether to hear the case. Given the unanimous decision of the Fourth Department, the Court of Appeals is not obligated to take it up and, in fact, rarely does so in cases already ruled unanimously. Miller Williams has consistently stated that she is preventing irresponsible borrowing to protect taxpayers from future debt service and interest payments that will cause taxes to increase. In fact, she mentions Buffalo's proposed 25% property tax increase and increases for water, sewer, and user fees Although these hikes are addressing the city's $109 million deficit and wouldn't be affected by a refusal to borrow. Nowakowski and Scanlon make excellent points when they say her refusal to borrow has cost the city millions of dollars because of rising construction costs and missing opportunities for projects with matched funds from other levels of government. And then there's the impact on city residents, denied access to improved infrastructure and equipment the city urgently needs. Nowakowski and Scanlon are reportedly in talks with their attorneys about bringing a motion to hold Miller Williams in contempt of court. Meanwhile, Ryan has been eager to get started on the delayed projects when the 4th Department made its decision last month. Everyone else is eager to see vital infrastructure improvements move forward, while Miller Williams' intent to protect taxpayers may have been well-meaning. These drawn-out court battles are producing the opposite effect.
And Kathleen Parker says a cruel reality is witnessed by the hantavirus passengers. In the hellscape of my worst nightmare, I'm trapped on a cruise ship. And that's without a rodent-borne virus, 3 dead passengers, others showing symptoms of the disease, and dozens aboard who could become infected. On top of this worst-case scenario, no country will allow us to dock. This nightmare is only in my imagination, but for several days, it had been a reality for nearly 150 people who have become hostages to a relatively rare disease, hantavirus, and a world seemingly uninterested in helping them as they floated in limbo off the West African coast near Cape Verde. Officials there have declined to welcome the weary travelers, though 3 sick passengers were airlifted from the ship on Wednesday. Officials in port cities, meanwhile, have been bickering about how to deal with this floating petri dish. Following days of confusion about how the disease got on board and uncertainty about whether the virus can be passed human to human, Spain finally agreed to let the ship dock in the Canary Islands against the local officials' wishes. Transit from Cape Verde to the island is estimated to take about 3 days. Hantavirus can be found anywhere rodents live, but most often in North and South America. Usually the virus is passed from rodent droppings to people, not human to human, but the Andes strain of hantavirus, which has been identified on the ship by authorities, can be contagious among humans. The Dutch cruise ship MV Hondius departed April 1st from Argentina, where a rodent known to carry the Andes strain is common. The first passenger became ill on April 6th and died on board on April 11th. Weeks passed between that death and confirmation of the hantavirus, according to the Associated Press timeline. Whether a rodent was a stowaway or a passenger was infected before boarding is a question yet to be answered. This uncertainty surely contributed to fears about releasing a boatload of possibly infected people into one's community. Moreover, a 65-year-old German passenger who was evacuated was in close contact with one of the people who died. This increases the likelihood of further contagion. Obviously, the risk posed by possibly infected people can be mitigated, including through reasonable isolation, testing and monitoring, and fumigation of the ship. The World Health Organization, which is helping to coordinate the ship's transit to the Canary Island, insists that the overall public health risk of the hantavirus remains low. That's nice, but imagine being cloistered in a cabin on that boat, waiting and wondering, am I next? While no one should be paralyzed by fear, an abundance of caution is not irrational. Leaving people indefinitely trapped on a sick ship, however, is cruel and unusual by any humanitarian standard. I keep thinking of the young man, Jake Rosemarin, on the cruise ship who made a tearful video of himself, explaining how he and the other passengers were coping. He said they only want to be safe, to have clarity, and go home. It was heart-rending to watch. Surely nothing scalds the soul like rejection. To know that the world doesn't want you because you might be sick must feel like a little death with each passing day. In full disclosure, I'm biased against cruise ships, which I prefer to see departing rather than arriving wherever I might be. The frequent incidents of troubled voyages, stricken with illness, or tainted by passengers gone missing make the popularity of cruises all the more baffling. Last year, 23 incidents of gastrointestinal illness were reported on cruise ships by the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. Though nothing like the hantavirus is in potential lethality, and representing only a fraction of the total number of cruises each year, the risk-reward ratio might give one pause before hitting the high seas. The poor folks on the MV Hondius signed up for an expeditionary voyage with an itinerary that included Antarctica, the Falklands, and various other small islands throughout the Atlantic. It was briefly a naturalist's dream, though not, as this expression goes, a one to die for.
And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and the time is 30 minutes past the hour. And on the editorial cartoon, we have what I would say a Trojan, that the armor on an elephant head that has GOP written on it, and a big horse in the background, and underneath the caption is the Odyssey. And in script within this fiery brimstone type thing is big government, protectionism, trade wars, massive spending, political retribution, alienating our allies, terrorists, record debt, and now $1 billion for a ballroom? Can we ever get back home? And in an opinion from Frederick Hans Franzen, the American Revolution creates a great traitor. We think of wars as conflict between militaries decided by force. However, as the German military theorist Karl von Clausewitz famously said, war is, in active force, to compel our enemy to do our will. We see this in the current conflict with Iran. The United States has destroyed much of Iran's military infrastructure and killed several levels of its leadership, but it has not forced Iran to do its will. Having exhausted most of its target list, the United States has instead turned to economic means, blockading Iran's ports, shutting off its commerce, and even boarding its ships, swashbuckler style. This is not a new strategy. 250 years ago, as the Continental Army was recovering from its failed invasion of Canada and British forces were regrouping after their forced evacuation of Boston, both sides turned to economic measures to impose their will on the other. The freedom to trade is a fundamental American principle, but the practice of using trade as a weapon is a tradition even older than the country. In 1774, at the Continental Congress, the colonies created the Continental Association to enforce a boycott on buying, consuming, or selling British goods. Its purpose was to inflict economic pain on Britain and thereby force Parliament to change its policies. In December of 1775, the British retaliated by passing the Prohibitory Act, which imposed a total blockade on the colonies. The message: if you won't trade with us, we'll stop you from trading with anyone. The blockade went into effect on the 1st of March in 1776. The colonists responded by shifting trade policy in the opposite direction, declaring themselves open to commerce with everyone except Britain. What had started as a near total cessation of trade in 1774 turned into a movement for free trade in 1776. Commerce with France, the Netherlands, and their Caribbean colonies skyrocketed. The benefit was not merely commercial. In his notes on the Continental Congress, John Adams recalls arguing that your trade will become of so much consequence that foreigners will protect you. The trade would incentivize foreign powers to support the revolution once they tasted American tobacco, rice, and indigo. And what about those swashbucklers? In April of 1776, the Congress approved the provision of letters of marque, or papers allowing private colonial ships to stop, board, and seize British ships. Those carrying letters of marque were called privateers to distinguish them from pirates, who engaged in much the same behavior but weren't legally sanctioned by any government. The response was overwhelming. During the war, ships operated by privateers outnumbered those of the Continental Navy by as much as 30-1. They captured or destroyed as many as 1,600 British ships, enriching themselves, helping the war effort, and seriously disrupting British trade. In the end, Britain lost its will to fight after a few decisive battles. Battles, however, in which the French joined, in no small part, as Adams had predicted, out of a desire to protect their new commercial partners. The effect was lasting. Trade with Britain accounted for 50% of American trade before the Revolution. After the war, less than 30%. The colonies entered the war dependent on the British and came out engaged with the world.
And in another opinion, Justin Fox says, believe it or not, we would miss gas taxes when they are gone. The sharp rise in gasoline prices caused by the Iran war has led to bipartisan calls and, in some cases, action to reduce U.S. gas taxes. At least 3 Republican-run states have declared gas tax holidays, and 3 Democratic senators have introduced legislation to suspend the federal gas tax until October. These moves reduce government revenue and actually worsen the global oil crisis by exacerbating the supply-demand imbalances that are causing price increases. Many consumers seem to be turning to a more permanent solution, with the crisis already delivering a big boost to global electric vehicle sales, and all of this raises questions about what will replace what has long been the leading means of paying for transportation infrastructure in the U.S. and much of the world. The only plausible answer is user fees. These exist in the U.S. in the form of highway, bridge, and tunnel tolls, and since early last year, New York City's congestion charge. Expect more tolls and congestion charges in the future, but also some sort of mileage fee to be charged to everyone with a car or a truck, and possibly monitored by global positioning system trackers. Fuel taxes have been a remarkably efficient way of collecting revenue and even promoting behavior friendly to the environment. Their replacements will be kludgier and more intrusive. The U.S. has not used fuel taxes to anywhere near their full potential. At the federal level, where since 1993 the excise tax on gasoline has been stuck at 18.8 cents a gallon, and the diesel excise tax 24.4 cents, fuel taxes and other vehicle-related fees no longer bring in nearly enough revenue to cover what Congress allocates to transportation. Congress has been covering the gap with appropriations from general revenue, but given yawning federal deficits, that does not seem sustainable. Another twist is that continued trust fund deficits will cause federal spending on highways and transit to lose its privileged contract authority and become annual appropriations that are much harder to plan around, as Jeff Davis and Rebecca Higgins of the Eno Center for Transportation in Washington explained in a recent report with the dire title, The Last Exit, Options for Fixing the Highway Trust Fund While Solvency is Still Solvable. More like Slavency, but yeah, okay. The spending increases in recent years have been huge, partly because of COVID-19 stimulus efforts, and partly because of inflation, and reining them in is one option. A target, popular in conservative circles, is the 13% or so of highway trust fund revenue that is set aside for public transportation. In crowded places like the Sela corridor of the Northeast, transit spending clearly complements road spending by easing traffic congestion. But that's less true elsewhere, and I'm certainly not going to argue that the federal government's transit priorities have been consistently sensible. Another possibility would be raising gas taxes. State and local governments have been doing this in the absence of federal action, but the increases haven't been enough to fully counteract the decline in federal revenue. Adjusted for inflation, overall U.S. gas tax revenue is lower than it was 30 years ago. Gas taxes in the U.S. could stand to be higher, but raising them would speed the underlying trend that is undercutting motor fuel tax revenue around the world. Even in the EV laggard that is the U.S., gasoline consumption is lower than it was 20 years ago, and it's falling. Fuel efficiency improvements in internal combustion engine vehicles are a chief reason for this development. A slowing in the growth of vehicle miles traveled is another. As David Ditch of the Conservative Economic Policy Innovation Center points out, the rollback in fuel economy enforcement included in last year's budget bill actually improved the Highway Trust Fund's revenue outlook, as the Congressional Budget Office reduced its estimates of future fuel efficiency improvements. This move and the general anti-EV stance of the Trump administration and the Republican Congress feel more like lost cause signaling than sustainable policy, though. As EVs keep improving, they will eventually become so superior to the fossil fuel competition that it's hard to see how their rise can be stopped. And it shouldn't be. Which brings us back to replacing gas taxes. All but 10 U.S. states have implemented EV-specific annual registration fees, which range from $260 in New Jersey to $50 in Hawaii and South Dakota. Several are offering mileage-based fees as an alternative, and Hawaii is planning to make these mandatory for EVs in 2028 and mandatory for all vehicles in 2033. This will be accomplished with annual odometer readings, which can work in a state surrounded by thousands of miles of oceans. Elsewhere, GPS-based systems seem necessary to align fees with states' actual road use. Adjusting fees by vehicle weight also seems crucial because a large SUV wears down roads faster than a subcompact. And at some point, the federal government needs to be integrated into the fee collecting system if a highway trust fund and significant federal transportation spending are going to continue. It's all a reminder of what an elegant solution motor fuel taxes have been to the problem of how to fund transportation. They're easy to administer, don't involve tracking motorists' movements, and do quite a decent job of maxing tax payments to road wear and tear. The one innovation in user fees that offers clear advantages over gas taxes is congestion pricing, because it incentivizes drivers to use more roads more efficiently. The Trump administration, which has been trying unsuccessfully to halt New York City's congestion pricing experiment, recently announced a Freedom to Drive initiative to address the nation's growing congestion problem. I know just the policy that will fix that.
That sounds very interesting. And now, as part of our newspaper reading, we present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, you can call us at 716-821-5555. Callista A. Bender, Nee Mudgridge. Michael B. Karajak. Blair Mann. Robert William, known as Bill Stevens. Paul C. Weber. Barbara Ann Westfall, Nee Grupka. Donna Milks, Nee Finn. James W. Mayer. Anthony P. Hamill. Daniel Falzer. Michael E. Zimmer Jr., and Abraham Foxman, who once led the Anti-Defamation League. Again, if you have any information, you need any further information on any of these names, you can call us at 716-821-5555. Again, that's 716-821-5555.
And happy birthday if your day for birth is May 12th. You are methodical, dependable, logical, and tenacious. You're also caring and supportive. This is the end of a 9-year cycle, making it time to let go of people, places, and things that are holding you back. If you are Aries, it's a tricky day. You're enthusiastic about financial matters. Perhaps you're ready to spend big on something that you really want. Tonight, you win. Taurus, today Mercury is in your sign dancing with Jupiter, which makes you optimistic about everything. Oh yes, you're ready to take a chance. Tonight, enjoy your privacy. Geminis, you make a great impression on others today because you're upbeat and enthusiastic, especially about some behind-the-scenes ideas. Tonight, you're going to have warm friendships. Cancer, your enthusiasm is contagious and you will encourage others today because of it. You have big ideas about travel plans, and tonight you're going to be noticed, so bring those plans up. Leos, tread carefully today because the moon is in one of your money houses, boosting your enthusiasm and giving you the ability to convince others to go along with your ideas. Tonight you should learn and explore. Virgos, plans for travel, higher education, publishing, the media, medicine, and the law sound exciting. However, do not sign on the dotted line today.
Ooh.
Tonight, you have to check your finances.
Oh boy.
Libras, work-related travel might occur today. You'll be convincing if dealing with wills, inheritances, shared property, taxes, or debt. But tonight, you have to cooperate. Scorpios, conversations with partners, spouses, and close friends are optimistic and mutually encouraging. Plus, it's a great day to socialize and enjoy sports events and fun times with your kids. Tonight, focus on getting better organized. Sagittarius, it's a tricky day. You're pumped about issues with your job, your health, or a pet. Tonight, you should socialize. Capricorns, you are full of great ideas and eager to persuade others to your point of view. Plans for vacations, social outings, and sports events are so exciting, they're almost at a fever pitch. So tonight you have to relax at home. Aquarius, you might be enthused about financial matters, potential earnings, or a way to boost your wealth. You might want to buy something exciting. Tonight, conversations, so talk about those purchases. Pisces, for most of this day, the moon is in your sign, dancing with Jupiter, making you feel extroverted and eager to make your pitch about whatever interests you. But tonight, check your money.
A lot of that check your money stuff going on there. And from Audrey Clark and Brad Hahn, who are executive directors of Gardens Buffalo Niagara and Explore Buffalo, another voice. Staying close to home helps build local economies. Explore Buffalo and Gardens Buffalo Niagara encourage Buffalonians to rediscover their own backyard and strengthen their own community by being tourists right here at home. It's easy to take our surroundings for granted. The architecture we pass on our daily commute, the historic streets we've walked 100 times, and the gardens tucked into familiar neighborhoods are the very places that visitors travel miles to see. Gardens Buffalo, Niagara's Garden Walks shows what's possible when neighbors come together. We started as a grassroots effort that has grown into a blooming movement that helps define Buffalo. Each summer, hundreds of homeowners open their private gardens. These walks are free, accessible, and uniquely welcoming. When residents visit, they're not just admiring flowers. They're experiencing a culture of generosity, creativity, and connection that continues to grow across Western New York. Explore Buffalo's tours offers insight into places both familiar and off the beaten path. With one of the greatest varieties of walking tours in America, Explore Buffalo's tours connect us to Buffalo's past in meaningful ways, whether it's stepping inside a landmark building or uncovering stories of people who shaped our city. Taking a walking tour led by a knowledgeable volunteer docent reminds us that our community's story is rich, complex, and still unfolding. There are also tangible economic benefits. When residents participate in tours and garden walks, they contribute to a local tourism ecosystem that supports small businesses, creates jobs, and drives investment in our neighborhoods. Restaurants and shops benefit when people spend a day exploring the region. Perhaps most important, these experiences bring people together. When social connection can feel elusive, walking through a garden or joining a tour offers a simple, meaningful way to engage with neighbors and visitors alike. Conversations start and a shared sense of place is strengthened. This spring and summer, we invite you to see Western New York with fresh eyes. Take a tour, visit a garden, and bring a friend. You may be surprised by what you discover and by how much your participation helps our community continue to grow and thrive.
And in national news, that discount at the pharmacy counter could be hiding costs, too. The next time you go to the pharmacy, you might be offered a coupon on your prescription drugs. While it may sound like a great deal, with the prospect of saving hundreds of dollars, the decision to accept it is complicated, especially for people who have insurance. Even as prescription drug costs rise, patients with commercial insurance have slowed their use of manufacturer-sponsored drug coupons in recent years, according to a study published in April by the Journal of the American Medical Association. Manufacturers are offering just as many of them, but still we see a lot of affordability issues among this commercially insured population, said Seong Kang, the study's main author, who is an assistant professor of health management and policy at Georgetown University. Patients are at the intersection and battle place between these payers and manufacturers, she said. Drug manufacturers distribute co-pay coupon cards to consumers online or at the pharmacy counter. These manufactured sponsored coupons are not the same as discount card services from companies like GoodRx, which negotiate lower bulk pricing for prescription drugs and then pass those savings to the consumer. Manufacturers issue the coupons to keep their drugs competitive by offering patients short-term savings. Consumers pay less out of pocket, often for brand name drugs. This encourages patients to use the brand name version of the drug, even when a cheaper generic might be available. Some insurers say this unfairly puts them on the hook for pricier drugs. They say monthly premiums are higher as a result, punishing consumers and patients, not the manufacturers. So, should you use the manufactured sponsored prescription drug coupons when they are offered? The short answer is, it just depends. What if you do not have insurance? If you are uninsured, using a coupon can be a great way to save money, especially if there's no generic version of the drug. TrumpRx is a new federally funded initiative that acts as a prescription drug coupon dashboard for patients. Some of the coupons come from manufacturers while others do not. Not every drug has a coupon offer, but the portal will save consumers money on drugs for those that do, especially in the short term. Michelle Long, a senior policy manager at KFF, who studies patient and consumer protections, said people without insurance can save money by using TrumpRx or manufacturer coupons. I wouldn't brush it off entirely because it's got Trump's name on it, Long said. For a lot of people who take certain medications, there's really could be some real savings. Still, Long said TrumpRx lists only about 85 drugs among thousands approved by the FDA. It is important to note that drug coupons have limitations and guidelines. They do not last forever. When they are exhausted, uninsured consumers may have to pay full price for the drug. What if you have commercial health insurance? For people with insurance, the answer, it's more complicated. If the drug isn't covered by your insurance plan, or if you intend to pay cash, then the coupon may be the way to go. If not, you have to be wary. Insurance coverage varies for certain kinds of drugs, such as GLP-1 obesity drugs. Kang's study found that coupon use by commercial insurance holders on obesity drugs dropped from 54.6% of prescriptions in 2017 to 2.5% in 2024, even though use of the drugs has been rising in the United States. She said that this reflects the growing number of patients paying cash for the drugs as prices decline, along with insurers reluctant to cover them and manufacturers shifting their focus to marketing campaigns. What if you expect higher medical costs this year? If you have insurance and anticipate meeting your deductible for the year, then consider using the coupons. Coupons let you pay less out of pocket when you visit the pharmacy, but your insurer likely won't count the value of the coupon toward your deductible. Only use a coupon if there is no generic option available and if you know you'd otherwise hit your deductible. What if you have insurance but low overall medical costs? The answer will most always be don't use the coupon. Unless the drug you are looking for is not covered by your insurance plan, using coupons will put you at risk for higher indirect costs. It often more advantageous to spend toward your deductible. Watch out for copay adjustment programs that insurers use to discourage the use of drug coupons. They come in two common forms. Copay accumulators allow the use of drug coupons up to their full value, but the amount of the coupon won't count toward patient deductibles or out-of-pocket maximums. That makes it harder for them to reach the threshold at which insurers will pitch in on prescriptions and other medical care. Copay maximizers use a similar technique that also prevents the coupon value from counting toward deductibles. Maximizer programs use a third party to adjust patients' copayments over the course of a year to match the amount of the manufacturer's coupons. Insurers sometimes offer the program to consumers under euphemistic names like the Employee Savings Program. That sounds good in theory, but in reality, it takes away some of the value of the coupons. What if you're on Medicaid or Medicare? Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries are prohibited from using manufactured sponsored coupons. A federal anti-kickback law makes it illegal to give someone anything of value to influence their decision to purchase something that will ultimately be paid for by a federal health care program. The law also prevents remuneration, which includes waiving copays and charging less than fair market value for a product. Manufacturer drug coupons squarely fit into both categories. Some states, notably California and Massachusetts, prohibit or limit the use of manufacturer drug coupons when a generic version of the drug is available, highlighting the tension among manufacturers, health plans, as well as the government.
And Musk and Cook are among key business figures headed to the summit, officials say. Tesla and SpaceX Elon Musk, Apple's Tim Cook, GE Aerospace Larry Culp, and Boeing's Kelly Ortberg will join President Trump on his visit to China this week, a White House official told Reuters. Others taking part include Meta's Dina Powell McCormick, BlackRock's Larry Fink, Blackstone's Steven Schwarzman, Micron's Sajan Mahorta, MasterCard's Michael Miebach, Qualcomm's Cristiano Amon, and Visa's Ryan McInerney, the official said. Cisco CEO Chuck Robbins was invited by the White House to join the China trip, but was unable to attend at the company's earnings will be released this week, a company said. The U.S. and China are expected to agree to forums to facilitate mutual trade and investment, while China is expected to announce purchases related to Boeing airplanes, American agriculture, and energy, Reuters reported earlier on Monday. Major business deals and purchases are often announced during summit meetings between China and the U.S. Other attendees include Cargill's Brian Sykes, Coherent's Jim Anderson, and Illumina's Jacob Thaysen. The two countries will also discuss lengthening a truce in their trade war that allows rare earth minerals to flow from China to the U.S., though it is not yet clear if that agreement will be extended this week, Reuters reported. Ortberg told Reuters in April that Boeing was counting on the Trump administration to help unlock a long-awaited major order from China. China and the U.S. planemaker have been in prolonged talks for a deal that industry sources say could include 500 737 MAX jets plus dozens of wide-body jets powered by GE engines. It would be the country's first major Boeing order since 2017, and any announcement of the order would be viewed as a major win for the leaders' summit. It could also represent the single largest airplane order in history. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang is not going to Beijing with Trump, a personal familiar with the matter said on Monday. Huang was not invited, the source said, with the White House focusing more on agriculture and commercial aviation matters, such as orders for Boeing planes, on the current trip. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Trump has developed a strong relationship with Huang since he has been in office and agreed to allow the company's H200AI chips to be exported to China. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said on April 22nd, citing difficulties with Chinese companies getting permission from the Chinese government to buy them. The last meeting between Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping was in October in South Korea, where they agreed to pause a bruising trade war that has seen the U.S. impose triple-digit tariffs on Chinese goods, and Beijing threatens to restrict the global supply of rare earths.
You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, May the 12th, on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are Lori and
Lita.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News, and your readers are
Lori and
Alita.
did you know that Tonawanda gets federal aid to help repair the Kohler Pool? A City of Tonawanda pool enjoyed by generations of swimmers, but in danger of closing, received a boost Monday with the announcement of $850,000 in federal aid for renovations. The grant, announced by U.S. Representative Tim Kennedy, marks the first commitment of public aid for Kohler Pool. The pool opened in the 1950s and needs substantial and costly repairs. The federal aid will enable the city to begin renovations next year. So this stabilizes and ensures that a full rehab will be able to happen. Our goal and our hope is to do a full reconstruction to last even longer, Kennedy, a Buffalo Democrat, said at a news conference at the pool. He called Kohler Pool critically important to Tonawanda. A full overhaul or replacement of Kohler Pool could cost up to $4.5 million, according to city estimates. Tonawanda officials said they hope that the $850,000 is just the beginning of more aid. James Sheisley, who represents the city's first ward on the Common Council, told Kennedy that local leaders would really appreciate it if we can add a zero to the $850,000 award. Kennedy replied, "We'll get to work on that," as a crowd of elected officials, city employees, community members, and teen lifeguards chuckled. Last summer, the city launched a Save Kohler Pool campaign, warning it did not have the money to make extensive repairs required to keep that pool open. Tonawanda officials sought federal, state, and nonprofit awards for the improvements, but until Monday, they hadn't won any grants that would come close to covering these costs. This federal aid will help the city begin the most urgently needed renovations next year, Tonawanda Mayor Bill Strasburg said. The work will include a complete bathroom remodel and replacement of the filter room pipes. The city also needs to find the precise source of the leak that causes the pool to lose roughly half a foot of water depth every night. You're losing so much water overnight that it's become a real problem. We just don't know the scope of that work until you really get into it. Strasburg said the city will focus on the pool's infrastructure first, the things that are going to keep the pool open. As far back as the 1980s, Tonawanda officials had worried about the future of Kohler Pool. Spring brings an annual question of whether it's safe to open it for the season. It's simply not sustainable in its current state. It needs attention. The city removed a water slide from the pool last year after attempts to repair it because it was deemed unsafe for the children to use. Will we replace the slide? Amanda Schepler, a city resident and grant writer who came up with the idea of Say Kohler Pool publicity campaign, asked Strasburg on Monday. "I'll answer that for the mayor," Kennedy said to Laughter. "Yes, the mayor's got to replace the slide now." Speakers on Monday called Kohler Pool an asset for city families, participants in youth camps, swimmers who train there, as well as the lifeguards. Strasburg said children who use Kohler Pool get valuable experience that can keep them safe when they swim in any of the waterways that surround Tonawanda. "It's great when you have a public splash pads and places for kids to cool down, but swimming is a very important skill to learn," said Chris Fisher, the second ward representative of the Common Council. Tonawanda officials previously said a study conducted several years ago offered two main options for the city's only municipal pool. Repairing the pool at a cost of $2.5 million would extend the facility's life by about 15 or 20 years, according to the assessment. Making a substantial, roughly $4.5 million investment to replace more of the existing pool complex would provide 35 more years of use. In 2024, Tonawanda asked for $4.5 million in community project funding through Kennedy's office. Kennedy backed the city's request, but the aid wasn't included in the final federal appropriations bill that was approved that year. A city grant writer, Nathan Taylor, also investigated seeking aid through Governor Kathy Hochul's New York Swims program, but determined Tonawanda wasn't eligible in the initiative's first round, which prioritized underserved communities, officials previously said. Strasburg, during a recent visit to Albany, asked state officials for Kohler Pool funding. "This pool is a real asset, and it can be a jewel for our community," he said. "We're facing some very difficult decisions coming up, and without this funding, in all likelihood, within a couple of years, that pool would have to close."
And a little bit about Medicare Advantage plans. Americans enrolled in Medicare Advantage health plans should expect to see fewer extra benefits like gym memberships and vision and dental coverage next year, investors and industry experts say. The U.S. government said last month it would raise 2027 payments to insurers managing Medicare Advantage plans for people ages 65 and older or with disabilities by 2.48% on average. Dr. Oz, head of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, has aimed to cut federal health plan spending. Insurance executives in recent weeks have said those rates, while higher than first proposed, are not good enough. Humana warned it would need to cut benefits. Added services, including coverage of vision, hearing, dental, fitness programs, meals, and transportation assistance, have helped entice half of the 70 million people on Medicare into managed care plans instead of the government's standard fee-for-service-based program. All insurers are likely to cut back on benefits, said Kevin Gade, Chief Operating Officer of Ball & Gaynor. Cutting those benefits encourages costly members with higher rates of medical needs to seek other plans, Gade said. Medicare Advantage insurers often wait until June to announce changes to plans, she said. Morningstar analyst Julia Utterback said changes are not out of the question. Investors said Medicare Advantage companies would be set apart by their quality or star ratings, which determine bonus payments and improve profitability. You have to be very particular within managed healthcare right now, especially companies with high government exposure and average star ratings, said Stephanie Link, Chief Investment Strategist at Hightower Advisors. Medicare Advantage plan enrollment began in October, just ahead of U.S. midterm elections that will determine whether Republicans can maintain their control of Congress. Voter anger over rising costs is often taken out on the party in charge. When Medicare Advantage funding doesn't keep pace with costs, seniors pay the price. We've seen it play out year after year, said Susan Riley, who's Vice President of Communications at Better Medicare Alliance, a coalition advocating for the plans. Alex Mills, a professor of Baruch College's Zicklin School of Business, said customers may be surprised at the increase in out-of-pocket spending, and that could lead to political pressure. It would not be shocking if there's somewhat of a backlash, said Bill Smead, founder and chief investment officer of Smead Capital.
And a homicide hearing in Buffalo focuses on contradictory statements. A Buffalo man accused of killing his stepdaughter in the summer of 24 spoke with police at the scene and gave an interview to homicide detectives in the hours after the slaying. What Peter D. Brown said that day, including what he told police that differed from what his wife told them, was the subject of a recent suppression hearing held in advance of his murder trial this summer. Brown, age 39, faces a second-degree murder charge for the August 4th, 24 death of Kaishana M. Jordan. Police responded to a home on the 400 block of East Ferry Street at about 4:25 a.m. after receiving a 911 call. Jordan, age 20, was found in a bedroom. She died from manual strangulation and blunt impact injuries to her head, according to prosecutors. Detectives interviewed Brown, as well as his wife Lindsay, the victim's mother, at police headquarters that morning. Brown was not arrested or charged that day. In March of 2025, Crime Stoppers Western New York offered a reward for information about Brown's whereabouts. Brown was found in Randolph County, Alabama on August 21st and arraigned on the murder charge in November. Jury selection in Brown's murder trial is scheduled to begin July 27. The hearing. 4 members of the Buffalo Police Department testified Friday, the second day of a hearing about whether any of Brown's reported statements will be barred from use at his trial. Body camera footage and a video and audio recording of Brown's police interview were entered into evidence for the judge to review, but they were not played in court Friday. Detective Anthony Shea testified that some of Brown's and his wife's statements contradicted each other when interviewed separately at headquarters. Peter said that he never left his bedroom after he went to bed. Lindsay disputes that, Shea said. Peter said he never left the house after noon that day. Lindsay disputed that. Peter later admits he did leave his house, I believe, at like 9:30. Peter says that he did not tell his wife that anybody broke in when he woke up. Lindsay disputes that. Officer Padriak Allman testified he was outside the house on East Ferry speaking to his supervisor Lieutenant Ashanti McLean, and also to Lindsay. McLean asked if Jordan was romantically involved with anyone, Allman said, and Lindsay responded that she wasn't. That's when Brown interjected, according to Allman. Defense attorney Daniel Dubois, who is representing Brown with defense attorney Brian Parker, asked Allman whether Brown kept mentioning something about dogs. Allman testified that Brown said dogs were barking, dogs were in the crate, and she wanted to get her hair done. Dubois asked Allman if he thought Brown involving himself in the conversation seemed inappropriate to him. Maybe the scene was chaotic, Dubois suggested. It wasn't chaos, it was normal, Allman said. It didn't bother me. Allman also was asked by the defense attorneys whether he recalled another officer saying he didn't buy Brown's story about what happened. Assistant District Attorney Meredith Mullen objected to the question as being outside the scope of the hearing, an objection State Supreme Court Justice Kelly Vacco sustained. Dubois said the statement goes to whether police viewed Brown as a suspect at that time. Officer Jacqueline Neal, another officer at the scene, testified that when she arrived, Brown was pacing outside the house. Neal also told attorneys she spoke with Brown and also heard him talking out loud to no one in particular. At one point, Neal said she heard Brown saying that he tried to performing CPR. Just before the end of the interview at headquarters, detective asked if Brown would consent to a DNA swab. He declined, Shea said. Investigators were interested in obtaining Brown's DNA because the victim was beaten to death and Brown had a cut on his hand and a scratch on his back. He also had dried mud all over his body, especially on his legs, the detective testified. Detective Sergeant Christopher Liska, who also was part of the interviews of Brown and his wife, described Brown as very willing to speak with police that day. Vacco, who will weigh the voluntariness of Brown's statements, told attorneys she expected to issue a ruling by July the 10th.
And the widow of fallen firefighter Jason Arnault has settled lawsuit for upward of $15 million. The widow of a fallen Buffalo firefighter has agreed to settle a lawsuit with the city and a contractor for as much as $15 million, according to her attorneys. Sarah Elizabeth Tierney's husband, Jason Arnault, died fighting a blaze on Main Street in 2023. Under the settlement, she will receive about $6 million from the city and $6 million from the contractor. Also, she will receive the wages her husband would have earned over his lifetime, which could be $2 million to $3 million, said attorney Charles Damone II. Testimony in a civil trial was supposed to begin on Monday, and the settlement with the city and JP Contracting of Western New York came together over the weekend, Damone said. Arnault, 37, died on the 1st of March in 2023, battling a blaze in a building at 743 Main Street that housed a costume shop. Workers were doing masonry work with a blowtorch when the fire started. The number one job of the fire department is to protect the firemen. Their safety is first, Desmond said, adding that didn't happen here. He called the financial terms of the settlement a good resolution. Tierney has been pushing the city to make sure the fire department properly trains its employees and follows the law, Desmond said. She was more concerned that this doesn't happen to some other firefighter going forward. The couple's daughter, Olivia, is 6 years old. In her 2023 lawsuit against the city of Buffalo and the fire department, Tierney alleged the city failed to properly train and supervise firefighters, failing to follow proper procedures, and failed to provide proper equipment to firefighters. Some improvements have already been undertaken by the department, and Tierney's foundation has donated funds to purchase better equipment, Desmond said. The Common Council must approve the settlement in order to finalize the agreement with the city. Mayor Sean Ryan calls Arnault's death a tragedy that shook Buffalo Fire Department and our city as a whole. While no legal remedy can ever undo this tragic loss, we believed it was important to work toward a resolution that avoided putting Mr. Arnault's loved ones and the city through a long and emotional trial, Ryan said in a statement. I want to thank the Corporation Counsel's office and all parties involved for working collaboratively to reach this agreement. I hope that it provides some measure of closure for the Arnault family. Michael Mezzacapa, a lawyer representing JP Construction, called terms of the settlement strictly confidential, so we cannot comment on it at all.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 14 minutes after the hour. A big investor asks Mattel to consider selling itself. A large investor in Mattel is asking the toy maker to sell itself to a big investor and take its share off the stock market. Southeastern Asset Management, which oversees 4% of Mattel's stock, said in a letter released last week that the company would be better off if owned by a private equity firm, a toy competitor, or maybe a media company. Mattel's stock price barely budged on the news, rising by less than 1% to around $15 since the letter was disclosed. Its shares have fallen nearly 25% just this year. Southeastern said Mattel's current strategy would make shareholders wait too long for the company's stock price to reach $30. We do not want to wait longer for that to be realized, Southeastern said in a letter addressed to Mattel Chief Executive Jan Kreitz. We would prefer you lead the effort to explore strategic alternatives given your industry knowledge and relationships. Mattel said that it appreciates and will consider the perspectives shared by Southeastern and other shareholders. The company said it will maintain its focus on squeezing more profit from the many famous toys and other intellectual properties that it controls. Our board of directors and management team are committed to acting in the best interests of all Mattel shareholders, the company said. Southeastern sent the letter to Mattel's board and other shareholders on Thursday. It was originally sent to Kreitz in mid-March, shortly before the company announced it was laying off 65 employees. Mattel has laid off hundreds of employees in the past year and a half, including 15 last year and between 75 and 100 in 2024 at its Fisher-Price headquarters in East Aurora. The company's shares and profit took a dip after it announced weak holiday sales in 2025, in part due to disappointing Barbie sales. Last year, its sales were about $5.3 billion, down 1% from the year before. Southeastern suggested 3 potential buyers. Private equity firms, which have expressed interest in Mattel for years, could help provide financial stability, the shareholder said. If the company delisted, it wouldn't have to worry about quarterly reports or annual expectations, Southeastern said. Another toy company could also be a potential buyer, the shareholder said, noting that Mattel and Hasbro have been in talks for years. We believe synergies between the two companies would be material, creating a stronger play in a global industry, Southeastern said. Mattel also has valuable intellectual property that could interest large media companies, Southeastern said. The 3 buyer options aren't mutually exclusive and could be combined, the shareholder said. We are grateful for your leadership that stabilized the business during a difficult period, Southeastern said in a letter. We believe that now is the time for the company to explore strategic alternatives.
And a couple of other business briefs. Sony Music agrees to buy Recognition Music catalog. Sony Music Publishing said on Monday it would buy Recognition Music Group's entire catalog of works from funds managed by Blackstone, gaining access to more than 45,000 songs, including those from Beyoncé, Fleetwood Mac, and Rihanna. Financial terms of the acquisition were not disclosed by the companies. The deal was for about $4 billion, a source familiar with the transaction said, requesting anonymity as the matter was private. Record labels and publishers are racing to secure ownership of music rights amid strong and predictable revenues from streaming platforms. And home sales inch higher. The U.S. existing home sales increased less than expected in April and could struggle to gain altitude as mortgage rates remain elevated and rising inflation squeezes household budgets. Home sales rose 0.2% last month to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 4.02 million units, the National Association of Realtors said on Monday. Economists polled by Reuters had forecast home resales would rise to a rate of 4.05 million units. The median existing home price last month rose to $417,000, up 0.9% from a year ago.
And in local news, the mayor creates a task force to give arts and culture a boost. Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan on Monday announced a new task force comprised of artists, nonprofit leaders, venue operators, educators, and cultural strategists. to advise the city on how to strengthen its arts and cultural sector. The Cultivating Resources for Entertainment, Arts, Tourism, and Expression CREATE Task Force will advise the Mayor's Office on governance, coordination, communication, and long-term strategy for Buffalo's arts ecosystem. In 2026, we need to ask ourselves what it truly means to be an arts-friendly city, Ryan said in a statement. Buffalo's artists and cultural organizations are part of what makes our city unique. It attracts people here. It strengthens neighborhoods and drives tourism and builds community, the mayor said. This task force brings together voices from across the arts sector to help us think strategically about how City Hall can be a stronger partner moving forward. The CREATE task force will focus on 3 areas. It will help define the city's role in fostering arts and culture, including evaluating the current city charter and how the city can most effectively support arts and culture. The task force will advise the city on how it communicates and engages with Buffalo arts and cultural community, and it will align city priorities with existing regional arts and cultural research, planning efforts, and stakeholder input, including the Erie County Cultural Plan and the Center for the Urban Future's Western New York's Creative Spark Report, Ryan said. There's a lot of long names in this.
Yeah, there sure is.
Yuki Numata Resnick, Senior Director of Arts and Culture at the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, was named the task force co-chair. I'm deeply grateful to Mayor Sean Ryan and to his administration for recognizing the need for a clear strategic vision for arts and culture in the city of Buffalo, she said. It's an honor to serve alongside leaders who are deeply committed to the strength and sustainability of Buffalo's cultural ecosystem. I'm hopeful this task force marks the beginning of a new chapter for Buffalo that is rooted in collaboration, coordination, and a shared commitment to thriving arts and culture sector that serves residents across our city. Other task force members include Nick Schifano, Program Officer at the Cullen Foundation, also named a co-chair. Michelle Augusto, Director of Arts for Public Schools, Buffalo Public Schools. Monica Engel, an artist. Julia Bottoms, a visual artist. Melissa Brown, Executive Director of the Buffalo History Museum. Jamil Cruz, Cruise Control Media. Tiffany D. Haynes, Curator at the Birchfield Penny Arts Center. Patrick Kaler, President and CEO of Visit Buffalo and a member of the City of Buffalo Arts Commission. Anna Kapuchik, Vice President of Asbury Arts Center. Amelia Schrader, Executive Director of Arts for Learning Western New York. Maria Ta, Executive Director of Ujima Theater Company. Alexa and Idris Wajed, founders of Eat Off Art. The task force will start meeting this month, with meetings every 2 weeks through August. More information can be found on the City of Buffalo's website.
And moving over to the sports, if you're feeling a little stressed about the Sabres, you're not the only one. I need their best game. 3 areas where the Sabres must improve for Game 4 against Montreal. Lindy Ruff is asking for plenty from the leaders of the Buffalo Sabres as they prepare to face the Montreal Canadiens for the 4th time in 7 days. Bring your best, just the way you did in crunch time against Boston. The Sabres prepare for Game 4 of a Stanley Cup Playoffs second-round series at 7 p.m. Tuesday at Bell Center and trail the Canadiens 2-1 in the best-of-7 series. This is where the Sabres need the maximum from their marquee players, whose production has been all but stifled by the Canadiens in the last 2 games. I need their best game, Ruff said. I need what they gave us in Game 6 in Boston. Our group gave us the best game of that series. This is the type of game where we need that, and they understand that. The Sabres move into what could be a series-changing Game 4. Lose, and the Canadiens can return to Buffalo, having pushed the Sabres to the brink of elimination.
No!
Win, and the Sabres can return to Buffalo prepared to make the final 3 games of the second round into a best-of-3 scenario. It's still 2-1 in the series, right winger Alex Tuch said. We have to come out flying. No excuses. We just got to be a lot better. That just doesn't happen on an impulse, particularly after a daunting 6-2 loss Sunday night in Game 3. The Sabres have to get calculated in their Game 4 preparations. We've got to get back to our game, playing predictable, playing quick, left winger Zach Benson said. Compete all around the ice. And here's the areas where they need to make gains to compete with the Canadians and the players that need to rise to the occasion in Game 4. Number 1, win more faceoffs. The Sabres need to improve quickly on faceoffs simply by winning more of them. It's a guaranteed means of puck possession. The Sabres are last in the 16-team playoffs in faceoff percentage at 42.4%. Montreal, meanwhile, is second in the playoffs at 57.1%. The Sabres have a face-off percentage of no higher than 43% in 3 games against the Canadians, and they have won 65 of 165 face-offs, 65 wins, 100 losses so far in the second-round series. Even the addition of Sam Carrick at center on the fourth line yielded sparse dividends in the face-off circle. Carrick finished 25% on face-offs, 2 wins and 6 losses in 6 minutes, 17 seconds of ice time over 11 shifts. That's the same face-off output of Josh Norris, though he played 13 minutes and 45 seconds over 22 shifts. And now, number 2, net front presence on offense and defense. The real estate immediately around the opposing goal has been Jason Zucker and Josh Doan's domain most of the season, but the Sabres didn't have an answer in front of Montreal goalie Jacob Dobis in Game 3. You want to get to the net, Benson said. It's the game of hockey. You have to get to the net. These goalies are way too good to let them see the puck. We've got to do a better job of undercutting and getting to the net, and we'll do a better job at that. The Sabres are also leaving ice open and giving the Canadians scoring chances from immediately in front of goalie Alex Lyon. 5 of the Canadians' 6 goals on Sunday came on shots from the slot between the circles and in front of the goal. And Montreal has 78 high-danger area shots to the Sabres' 75 in the first 3 games of the series, according to NHL Edge. And third, counter the Canadian speed and craftiness. Montreal's forwards and defensemen Lane Hutson consistently rolled into the Sabres zone and peppered Lyon with scoring chances after scoring chance from close range. The Sabres aren't getting physical deep in the zone either, as evidenced by Jurek Slafkowski's goal that made it 4-1 in the second period of Game 3, in which the Canadians' left wing got behind the defense, camped next to Lyon, and untouched redirected Hudson's pass into the goal. Sabre defenseman Bowen Byram had a strategy to cut down on the Canadians' forward possession in Game 4, making them play defense, which means the Sabres, who have been outscored 11-3 in the last 2 games and outshot 92-73 in the series, need to create more puck possession time of their own, even just to keep the puck out of Montreal's hands. And next, 3 players who need to step up. Alex Tuch. He got off to a blazing start in the first round against the Boston Bruins with 4 goals and 3 assists in the 6-game series. Tuch hasn't scored a goal since May 1st and has a plus-minus rating of -6 in 3 games against the Canadians. Tuch held nothing back in his self-assessment after Game 3, either calling it my worst defensive game in the playoffs. Tuch, regarded as one of the league's quality two-way forwards, is putting more stock into that part of his game as the Sabres prepare for Game 4. It's work, Tuch said. It's moving my feet. It's working. It's holding onto pucks. It's making it difficult for them to play offense. That's what I've done, what I was doing in the first round, and I need to be better at that. Jason Zucker. He usually would be the player that shakes up things in front of the opposing net, but Zucker's ice time has dipped dramatically from Game 1, 14 minutes and 15 seconds, to Game 3 of only 6.5 minutes. He has only 5 high-danger scoring chances in 5-on-5 situations in 9 playoff games. Ruff reiterated his point after Game 3 that Zucker's ice time diminished because the Sabres were in both power play and penalty kill situations, and because he wasn't on the top power play unit. Also, Zucker's line, with Ryan McLeod at center and Jack Quinn at right wing, has 1 goal and 6 assists on 40 shots on goal and a combined -15 in the playoffs. That's bad. It was not really fair. He's been sitting there a long time with the engine not running, Ruff said. But that line really needs to produce for us. Josh Norris. He has 1 goal in 6 playoff games. Norris didn't play in 3 games against Boston due to an undisclosed injury and became the third-line center after the Sabres lost Noah Ostlund to a lower body injury in Game 5 on the 28th of April in a 2-1 overtime loss against Boston. Ostlund had 1 goal and 1 assist in 3 games. One area where Norris has been proficient, face-offs. He's 50% on draws with 41 wins and 41 losses against Boston and Montreal. The NHL Department of Player Safety announced 2 fines out of the Game 3 of the Canadian Sabres series. Sabre forward Beck Malenstein has been fined $3,500 for interference against Dobis, Montreal goalie. And that's a great picture on there of 3 Montreal players and Malenstein just bowling over the goalie for Montreal. That was a good catch with the photography there, yes. Canadian defenseman Arbor Jettek has been fined $3,300 for roughing Carrick, the Sabres forward, and Jetnik took a minor penalty for roughing at the end of the third.
At the end of the third, Zekic took a minor penalty for roughing at the end of the third. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time, 30 minutes after the hour, and we're going to talk more about the Sabres. After the Game 3 disasters, the Sabres need to tie the Canadians up in knots. It's a shame we're not in Tampa. The Buffalo Sabres probably feel the same way. I love visiting here, love the Bell Center. Have been very fortunate to have been there several dozen times over the years. But it was gloomy here most of Monday. Some rain, chilly wind, temperatures barely in the 50s. Florida, it is not. Right about now, for once in their recent history, the Sabres probably could have used some palm trees to ponder things under on Monday. Instead of skating around and through the aging Tampa Bay Lightning, the Sabres have met their match in the speedy Montreal Canadiens. The battle of the 2 youngest teams remaining in the Stanley Cup playoffs has been a beatdown the last 2 games. The Habs have the Sabres on the run, taking a 2-1 lead in their second-round series thanks to back-to-back blowouts. The Habs have outscored Buffalo 11-3 the last 2 games and have thrust the blue and gold into instant soul-searching mode. The Sabres canceled practice Monday instead of opting for office work and meetings. They'll do some skating in that arena Tuesday morning, and that's when we'll get a glimpse of what changes Coach Lindy Ruff might make to his lineup for Game 4 Tuesday night. Though things appear dark right now, the reality is the Sabres simply need to win the next game. Take Game 4 and you tie the series at 2-2, instantly turning it into a best-of-3 affair, with 2 of those 3 games in KeyBank Center. We've got to reset, Ruff said Monday as he met with reporters at the team's downtown hotel. Playoffs are about the next game. It's not about the past one. The only thing we can control now is Game 4. Ruff didn't leave the Game 3 disaster alone, however. He said his daily meeting with the team on Monday morning was a direct one. The betting here was that it was mostly a one-way conversation. We're a pretty honest group with each other, Ruff said, with a smirk that foreshadowed a mic drop line. I might not be honest with you guys, but I'm honest with them. Ruff undoubtedly told his charges they'd better defend better. They can't let Montreal skate through the neutral zone at will. They have to stay out of the penalty box, too. What happened to the wagon we've watched for the last 5 months? It looks like it's suddenly developed a flat. The Sabres are trying to put on a happy face regarding their situation, and simply needing a win to get the series even isn't a terrible spot to be in. But it should be noted there is a lot of negative history to contend with here, even though the team isn't likely to be aware of it. Consider, when trailing 2-1, the Sabres have never won a series in their history.
Wow.
They're 0-15 in such spots. Time to change history. The Sabres haven't won a series in which they've trailed at any point since the second round in 1999, when they lost the opener to Boston and rebounded to win in 6 games. Change history. Until their 5-1 loss in Game 2 and Sunday's 6-2 drubbing in Game 3, the Sabres had not lost a playoff game by 4+ goals since their 4-0 home loss to Carolina in Game 4 of the 2006 East Final. They had not suffered back-to-back losses like that since Games 4 and 5 against Boston in 1983, 6-2 and 9-0, a series the Bruins won in overtime of Game 7. We got away from our game too much, Zach Benson said. They've got skilled players that when you give them time and space, they're going to make you pay. So let's get back to our system, playing our style of hockey, making them play on their heels instead of us playing on ours. The Sabres' top players are struggling to have a big impact on the series. Alec Touche and Tage Thompson looked particularly bad on Montreal's third goal Sunday when fourth liner Zachary Bulduck came down the middle ahead of a fruitless back-checking by Touche and beat Alex Lyon with the goal that really put the Habs in charge. "That's unacceptable," Touche said. "That was just a missed back-check on my part. That's on me. I can't leave Lyon out to drive like that. It's not good." Buffalo's top line is being badly outgunned by the Habs' top trio of Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Juraj Slafkovsky. And so are the secondary forwards. Second liner Alex Newhook is the first Montreal player with consecutive multiple goal games in the playoffs since Mark Rishi in 1997. Meanwhile, the Sabres' third line of Ryan McLeod, between Jason Zucker and Jack Quinn, has done nothing of note the last 2 games, and Zucker even rode the bench for much of Game 3. "I don't think we want to forget about that feeling last night," Touche said. "Me personally, I think that was definitely my worst offensive game in the playoffs. So I'm not going to forget that feeling, but yeah, I think it's only 2-1 in the series. We have to come out flying. No excuses. We just got to be a lot better."
Amen to that. And moving over to some NFL news, Brady becomes the surprise roast master. Tom Brady was the surprise guest and instant MVP on Netflix, The Roast of Kevin Hart, on Sunday. Wearing all black, the 5-time Super Bowl MVP strolled into LA's Kia Forum to throw some bomb 2 years after Kevin Hart hosted the greatest roast of all time, The Roast of Tom Brady, in the same arena in May of 2024. Brady was brutal on Hart during his brief cameo appearance. "Have you ever left the forum?" Brady asked Hart after his unbilled entrance. "Or have you just been here screaming into that light for the last 2 years waiting for Daddy to come home?" "Well, unlike your real dad, I actually showed up, and I brought you a jersey." Brady then presented the diminutive Hart with a mini New York Knicks jersey. "That's newborn size," Brady said. "It fits you."
Oh, wow.
Hart was an infamously harsh host of the 2024 Brady roast, while the former superstar NFL quarterback has not forgotten. "Didn't you say time to get comfortable with being uncomfortable?" Brady said on stage, mocking Hart as host. "Who's squirming in the high chair now? Put a pillow under there to make you look taller."
Wow.
Brady took issue with the Jumanji star Hart following him in the Netflix roasted saga. "I played in the NFL for 23 seasons, but I've never seen anyone drop the ball like this," said Brady. "How did the GOAT roast go from me to you? I won 7 Super Bowls. Kevin has made 2 ride-along movies. I've won 5 Super Bowl MVP awards. Kevin, you're the 3rd most famous person in Jumanji." Brady then ripped into Hart's 2026 roasters, who included host Shane Gillis, NBA star Draymond Green, Chelsea Handler, and lesser-known comics such as Cheryl Underwood and Big J. Okerson. "Who are these people and how did they get there? I thought they shut down Spirit Airlines," said Brady, who called the celebrity lineup pathetic. Brady landed a double NFL jab with a joke about Philadelphia native Hart's love for the NFL Eagles. "We've got some real Eagles fans here, not like Kevin, who shows up for the big games when the Eagles are playing well," said Brady. "We have a name for those fans. They're called Cowboy fans." Oh boy. Hart made jokes about Brady's family at the 2024 roast, and Brady returned the favor in 2026. "Kevin, you took a lot of shots at my family in the roast, but I'm too classy to go after your beautiful wife." "Or am I?" Brady asked. He located Inigo Hart in the audience and asked smoothly, "What's up, girl?" The comment prompted Hart to yell, "Cut it out," from his seat. Brady expressed joy about watching the event and exited the stage unscathed. He gave a final parting shot. "Payback's a bleep, and so are you, Kevin Hart," Brady said before exiting. He didn't drop the mic, but he should have.
Wow.
Yeah, that's bad.
And in the NHL, the Stanley Pup is set to return on June 8th. On your mark, get set, woof. The National Hockey League's Rescue Dog competition celebrating the Stanley Cup playoffs, known as the Stanley Pup, is returning on June 8th for its 3rd consecutive year, bringing a dose of puppy power to the postseason, the NHL announced Monday. We are thrilled to bring Stanley Pup back for year 3. NHL Content and Events President Steve Mayer said in a statement. This event has quickly become a fan favorite tradition, blending the competitive spirit of the NHL with a mission of finding homes for animals that are in need. Celebrities and players are to participate. The 90-minute special will feature an adorable lineup of 32 pups, one for each NHL team, who will face off in a friendly competition showcasing their canine skills and puppy puck handling on a miniature rink, the organization said. The pups will be provided by Brandywine Valley SPCA, an animal welfare organization with presence in Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, as well as Washington, D.C. Celebrity dog lovers and advocates, including Kenan Thompson, broadcaster Doc Emmerich, and NHL players Devin Cooley, Calgary Flames, Seth Jarvis, Carolina Hurricanes, and Will Smith, San Jose Sharks, will also participate in the special, which will have play-by-play commentary by Mark Shunock and Chris Rose. The upcoming broadcast will also include a segment hosted by Elias Weiss Friedman, popularly known as the Doggist, which will highlight the real-world impact of the program, as Friedman interviews 3 families who adopted a dog featured in previous Stanley Pup games, providing a special look at the lives of former canine players. Animal advocate Michael Levitt, whose Michael Levitt Productions is executive producing the event, in a statement said they have taken the show to the next level for the 3rd year of the Stanley Pup, and the puppies absolutely delivered. This special is pure joy for the whole family, and we hope it inspires people to open their hearts and homes to a rescue dog, Levitt said, because when these pups hit the ice, it's not just a game. It's a power play for adoption. How to watch the Stanley Pup. Stanley Pup will premiere 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time on June 8th on True TV, a simulcast on HBO Max. In Canada, it will air on Sportsnet. The show will also air in the Washington region on Monumental Sports Network, MNMT, following the national broadcasts, and will be available on its streaming platforms. The 90-minute event will also be available to watch on the NHL Network at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on June 10th, and on the NHL's YouTube channel, and that will be on June the 9th.
That's cool. Okay, let's go over to asking Eric. Dear Eric, my husband and I retired a little over 3 years ago. We both saved by working very hard all our lives so we can retire and travel. We started to travel often and are enjoying it very much, except I feel guilty when talking to our 2 adult children who are living paycheck to paycheck. They don't say anything negative to us, but I just feel they think instead of us traveling extensively, why don't we help them financially? Should we try to help them financially? We are not rich, but our financial advisor said we should be in good shape even with our travels if we stay on budget. I try to not speak too much about each trip so I don't rub it in that we are financially stable when each of them is not so. How do I get my mind in a place where I don't feel guilty about our travels and financial stability? Signed, Retired Guilty Parents. Dear parents, it sounds like the guilt is coming from a narrative that's playing in your mind, which may not match what's going on in your children's. So we all do this sometimes. It's natural to make an educated or empathetic guess, but one of the gifts we can give ourselves and others is saying, this is the story that's in my head. Does it match what's in yours? So ask your children if your travel is creating resentment. Tell them about your concerns for them and then listen to the answer. They may not be thinking about this in the same way at all. They may be happy that after all your work and your sacrifice, you're able to enjoy your time. Indeed, hearing about your trips could bring them a lot of joy. Think about how you might feel if the positions were reversed. Knowing that your children are seeing the world and making good use of their time might be a bright spot for you and might make you feel better about whatever is happening in your life. Surely there was a time earlier in life when your financial picture wasn't so stable. Going through it isn't necessarily a requirement or a rite of passage, but it does happen to many of us. You could be serving as an example for your children of what can come. That would be an invaluable gift. Dear Eric, I am a single lady in my 70s with a comfortable and active social life. I'm not looking for, but would not turn away from, a nice romance. I have recently met a very nice gentleman that has shown considerable interest in me. As far as personality and interests go, I could see us as quite compatible. We have had opportunities to be together in several group activities as well as few one-on-one activities, and we truly enjoy each other's company. The problems lie in his personal hygiene. Quite bluntly, he smells. His clothes aren't clean, and I don't think he showers daily. It could be that he just kicks up a lot of dirt during the day and doesn't refresh at home before he goes out for the evening, but it's definitely a deterrent for me. Is it best for me to just keep this friendship at arm's length? Or is there some way to properly address this issue with him? Signed, Odor Issue. Dear Issue, a conversation about what's standing between the two of you might be awkward. Indeed, it will probably be at least a little awkward, but it's the way to go. It would be one thing if you weren't interested in a relationship, and then your no could be a simple no, and it would behoove this gentleman to accept it and move on. But if this is something you want to pursue, you should say something. Think of it this way. Communication is going to be the bedrock of any relationship. So instead of keeping him at arm's length and leaving him to wonder, you have the opportunity to clue him in on your experience and ask for what you need. You might start by saying that you don't mean to offend him and you respect his personal choice, but you want to share what's keeping you from being more serious with him. Use I statements to talk about your experience with odors and your relationship to hygiene, and I encourage you to push through the awkwardness even if it doesn't result in a romantic relationship. His lack of hygiene could indicate a deeper issue, or at the very least, an opportunity for him to be healthier. It might be difficult for him to hear, but it could be ultimately good for him to know that someone cares enough to say something.
Absolutely. And in golf, Scheffler seeks PGA Championship repeat. Scotty Scheffler enters this week's PGA Championship as a hot favorite to become the event's first repeat winner since Brooks Koepka in 2019, while a confident Rory McIlroy eyes more major glory after successfully defeating his Masters title. Lurking behind the two best golfers on the planet is a cast of contenders with unfinished business at the year's second major. Among them, Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, Cameron Young, and Jordan Spieth, who arrives with a chance to complete his career Grand Slam. The PGA Championship gets underway on Thursday at Aronimink Golf Club in Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, a private country club located in the western suburbs of Philadelphia that is consistently rated among the nation's top golf courses. The championship was last played at the course back in 1962. World number one Scheffler, who prevailed by 5 shots in last year's PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, has runner-up finishes in his last 3 starts on the PGA Tour, including at the Masters, where he fell just short of pulling off an unprecedented comeback from 12 strokes down after 36 holes. From tee to green, Scheffler may be swinging it as well as he has all season, preparing him for a strong look at defending his PGA Championship title. It sure looks like to me Scotty's going to come back and break through one of these days and get off the second place train. This might just be the perfect week in my mind, veteran broadcaster Jim Nantz said on CBS Sports PGA Championship preview call. World number 2, McIlroy, arrives at Aronimink as a 2-time defending Masters champion. McIlroy, who made the cut on the number at last year's PGA Championship before finishing in a share of 47th place, skipped tournaments leading up to the 2026 Masters so he could take a private jet to Augusta for practice rounds and be home for dinner. Since successfully defending his Masters title, the Northern Irishman has kept a similar schedule, his only start coming at the PGA Tour's signature event in Charlotte, where he finished in a share of 19th place on Sunday. Despite the lack of competitive reps, McIlroy is fully expected to be in the mix this week. I'm not concerned about him taking this time off at all. He quite frankly did it before the Masters and had a great week there, said CBS Sports lead analyst and former Masters champion Trevor Immelman. So I think he'll be ready, raring to go. Weekly earns first Champions Tour win. Boo Weekly delivered a bogey-free 3-under par 69 to comfortably win his first Champions Tour event at the Iceberry Invitational on Sunday in the Woodlands, Texas. Weekly didn't live up to the 6-under scores he posted in each of the first 2 rounds, but he still finished the event with no bogeys in 54 holes, finishing 3 strokes clear at 15 under par 201 at the Woodlands Country Club.
Okay, and just a little brief thing here, interesting article about, it's called Costly Invaders. The Federal Prize Challenge aims to attract solutions to halt mussels spread. Hundreds of invasive species that swim, crawl, float, fly, or multiply cost of the United States billions every year in damage and control efforts. Among the most costly invaders in freshwater lakes and waterways are a group of voracious mussels that first appeared in the U.S. more than 30 years ago. Zebra mussels and quagga mussels can wreak havoc in the waterways, fouling pipes and other submerged equipment at dams, hydropower plants, docks, and harbors. Spending on efforts to repair the damage and control or eradicate the mussels is estimated at $1 billion a year. The mussels are moved from place to place in the ballast water of vessels, primarily recreational boats, which also spread other aquatic pests and plants such as hydrilla and water hyacinths, according to federal documents. Wanting to step up efforts to battle an array of aquatic invaders, federal agencies launched a $550,000 prize challenge to solicit help in eliminating the risk of the mussels spreading. The Bureau of Reclamation under the Department of the Interior is coordinating the challenge with NASA. They hope to inspire innovative solutions to block the mussels and other aquatic invasives from entering or leaving a boat's ballast. While existing watercraft inspection and decontamination programs are effective, they are time and labor intensive, creating challenges during peak boating seasons, according to an agency news release. Zebra mussels arrived in 1988 and now are found in 32 states. Quagga mussels arrived just a few years later and are found in 19 states. A third species, the golden mussel, was detected in California in 2024 and is expected to be equally troublesome. The mussels can attach to pretty much any hard surface, then grow and multiply, said biologist Sherry Pucciarelli, who works at the Bureau's Technical Service Center. They attach themselves by root-like protein threads to submerged equipment and infrastructures at dams, floodgates, marinas, and other waterfront industry facilities. That causes a lot of increased maintenance. Adding to the difficulty, the mussels' offsprings are microscopic and can travel in water unseen. The mussels can attach themselves to native mussels, which can be fatal for the natives and to turtles, Pucciarelli said. They affect entire ecosystems and lakes with consequences that cascade across the entire food web. Filter feeders, they can consume so much plankton that they starve other native species. When they die, their empty shells clutter beaches and cause additional obstructions to filters and equipment when they wind up downstream. Government agencies employed an array of methods to try to control the spread of the mussels, and many states require boat inspections and decontaminations, but that can lead to backups and delays during busy summer boating seasons. In some cases, divers remove the mussels one by one. In a few isolated locations, when aggressive actions were taken shortly after the mussels were detected, fledgling populations were eradicated.
And in Artisan Crafts World Cup trophies, Jarbas Maganini has made more than 3,000 plaster replicas of the Soccer World Cup trophy from his workshop in Rio de Janeiro to help fans root for Brazil to bring home the golden original from North America in July. The 58-year-old craftsman had the idea for his business after he saw then Brazil captain Dunga lift the trophy at the World Cup final in 1994. I saw Dunga holding the trophy and said I would buy one, but you can't find it anywhere, Mahangini said. So I decided to make it myself using the technical skills I learned doing metalwork. He now produces plaster replicas by hand, exporting them to 17 countries across the Americas and Europe. The replicas are produced from molds, some painted in gold and others given a polished chrome finish. Working near Rio's famed Maracana Soccer Stadium, he also sells the trophies to tourists and local fans. I make thousands of trophies from the same mold. Some are painted and others I make more special with chrome. They stand out more. You can see yourself reflected in them as you kiss them, he said. In other World Cup news, the United States men's national team will have one less option in the midfield, with Johnny Cardoso set to undergo ankle surgery this week in Barcelona, Spain. Cardoso, 24, was injured during practice with Atletico Madrid last week and was diagnosed with a right high ankle sprain.
And you have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for May 12th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekdays and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, you can call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Lori and
Lita.
Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.
Welcome summer with your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We're planning a summer bash bigger and better than ever before. It's Friday, June 26th at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove, located at the corner of Union Road and William Street in Cheektowaga. You're invited to enjoy a buffet chicken and pasta dinner, your first drink on us, a basket raffle, and Buffalo Music Hall of Fame party band The Boys of Summer from 6 to 9 p.m. Tickets are $50 and support the 160 volunteers who read all the programming offered by Radio Reading. That's Friday, June 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove in Cheektowaga. Get your tickets now by calling 716-821-5555 extension 3 or online at nfradioreading.org. Thank you to New Era Kep Foundation, Tyvarian Law, and Perry's Ice Cream for sponsoring this largest event of the year.
following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a